the sa'i. So we did with the tawaf, we dealt with the sa'i, what I'd like to do with the ihram, and then dealing with some landmarks within the haram. Next week, inshallah, I'll be leaving, inshallah, for Umrah on the 29th, which will be the following Monday. So next weekend will probably be the last Umrah class before I leave. But so then for next week, I will like to deal then with some ziyarah in Makkah and Medina, inshallah. So I don't know if there's anybody who's got any questions, then I would really appreciate whoever's got any questions. We should, inshallah, when we come to the end of the class, please ask the questions, because I would prefer people ask the questions so we can deal with it, so that we don't go with any misunderstandings or any confusions, inshallah. Even if it isn't something that we've covered so far in the presentations that we had, but if it is your question that relates to the Umrah that you would like to know, that you would like to understand, then please, inshallah. Okay. So inshallah, without any further ado, I just need to send a message quickly to someone. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وبه نستعين نحمد ونصلي ونسلم على رسول الكريم أما بعد اللهم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. So alhamdulillah, the previous week we dealt with how the Prophet ﷺ performed his Umrah, and also some aspects relating to the actual performance of Umrah within the haram, which is the tawaf and the sa'i. But for this week, inshallah, I would like to especially concentrate on the matter of ihram, because ihram is very crucial in relation to Umrah and Hajj as an ibadah, because one of the requirements for your Umrah is that you should be in a state of ihram. So what does ihram mean, what it entails, what are the things that we are encouraged to do when it comes to ihram, and what are the things that ihram actually prohibits us from doing. Because just like how the word haram in relation to Makkah and Medina means that it is an area where doing certain things becomes prohibited, in the same way, when it comes to the ihram, it also means that when a person is in this state, then certain things are prohibited upon the person. So therefore, when the word ihram is used, the first thing that usually comes to mind is the white seamless apparel, the clothing that is worn by men during pilgrimage. It actually refers to the state of the pilgrim. So ihram is not only the clothing, but more so it refers to a particular state that a person enters into, or that person puts himself in, and as a result of being in that state, certain things becomes prohibited to that person. So ihram is the state in which the pilgrim makes certain things and acts such as clipping the nails, having a haircut, picking of certain plants in and around Makkah, etc., which are normally permissible to him, but unlawful as long as the person is in the state of ihram. So ihram is about being in a prohibitive state, meaning certain things which would normally be permissible and allowed and even encouraged for you to do, and the state of ihram, it becomes prohibited for you to do those things. So therefore ihram comprises three things. Ihram comprises three things. Number one, it includes the intention for either Hajj and Umrah. So you cannot be in the state of ihram separate from the intention for Hajj and Umrah. Simultaneously, and when we're speaking about this intention, we're not speaking about the intention to go for Hajj or to go for Umrah. That is a separate intention. We are speaking here about the intention the person makes at the time of starting the act of the ibadat of Hajj and Umrah. Like a person can be at his home and he can make intention to make Dhuhr Salah today. But that in itself is not the intention of Salah. The person is not yet in Salah. Like now we have our Takbir. And this Takbir is called Takbiratul Ihram. Takbiratul Ihram. Why? Because once we say the Takbir of Salah, then things which outside of Salah would be permissible to us now becomes prohibited. But that state only happens when you are actually starting the commencement of Salah. It's not when you make the intention at home to go for Salah. In the same way, it is intention, it says the intention of either Hajj and Umrah. Now, what does intention mean in terms of our Sharia definition? In terms of our Sharia definition, an intention is al-qasdu muqaranatun bil-amal. Al-qasdu muqaranatun bil-amal. The determination to do something which is connected to you starting that action. So that's why I cannot make my intention sitting in the car, nawaitu usalli farada salati dhuhr arba raka'atin mustaqbil al-qiblati ma'muman lillahi ta'ala. And then I drive from home and I come to the masjid and I come in by the masjid and then I come and I say Allahu Akbar. That intention is not connected to the action. So I can only make that intention at the time when I'm intending to commence that action. So similarly, with the intention for Hajj and Umrah, you understand? My intention at the time, and this is normally connected to the putting on of the clothes of Ihram. Sometimes we can put on the clothing of Ihram before the time. Like generally if people, when they come from Medina to Makkah for Umrah, they will put on the clothing of Ihram at the hotel, and then they will go to Bir Ali or Dhul Hulayfa, and once they are there, then from there they make, because that is the miqat where the Prophet ﷺ made intention to go into Ihram for the purpose of his Umrah. So we go there and then we make our intention for Hajj and or Umrah from there. So the clothing of Ihram is one thing. Then the intention that puts us into the ibadah of Hajj and Umrah. When those two things become connected and joined, then we are in the state of Ihram. So Ihram is not only the clothing. So it doesn't mean that when I'm wearing the clothing, I'm automatically in the state of Ihram. No, rather it means the intention that is coupled with putting on that clothing. If I make the intention and I don't have those clothing on, then I am still in a state of Ihram, but I am in violation of one of the requirements of Ihram. And for that, I need to pay a penalty. So, for example, in the case of ladies, there's no specified clothing for ladies in Ihram. Ladies can wear any clothing, provided it covers the aura. And like in the case of Salah, the face and the hands will be open. So if a lady is covered like how our ladies generally are all sitting, or not all, but most sitting here, that would basically be sufficient for you for the clothing of Ihram. However, the men, you can't go into Ihram wearing that clothing. If the ladies wear the clothing that they are wearing, then they can go into the state of Ihram by just joining the intention. The men, however, there is specified clothing. So if any of the men makes the intention of Ihram for the purpose of Umrah or Hajj, and they are not wearing that clothing, the intention is still correct. They are still in the state of ihram, but because they're not wearing required clothing, that becomes a violation, and for that they need to pay a penalty, a dam. So the ihram comprises three things: the intention, the clothing, and that together puts a person into a state of ihram. And there are certain specified places from where the person is required to enter into the state of ihram, which actually precedes the haram area. So the haram area is a particular geographical area around the Masjied al-Haram, includes Makkah. That's where you'll find Makkah is included in the haram, but Arafah and Mina is outside of the haram. Arafah is outside the haram area. So when you go beyond the border of the haram, you can go to Arafah, which is not far from Makkah. Which is not far from Makkah. You can, because generally you find people can walk also from Arafah, the people who do the walking Hajj. They walk from Arafah to Muzdalifah, to Mina, to Makkah, etc. So it is within walking distance. It is a few kilometers, but it is within walking distance. But it is so close, but it is still outside of Haram, which is also why it is considered that if a person goes to Arafah, he can actually put on ihram from Arafah as well, because it is in the hill area, and then come in for performing Umrah. But it is not one of the designated miqat. So these points, rather areas from where a person puts on ihram, these are referred to as miqat. Miqat, and the word miqat can have two meanings. It either means a specified time, or it can mean a specified place. It can mean a specified time, or it can mean a specified place. Now, for the purpose of this miqat, we are speaking about 5 specified places from where we are required to put on ihram. And as I mentioned, this is long before you come into the haram area. Why? Because it is required that you must come into the haram area and into the Masjid al-Haram and into the ibadat of the Umrah and the Hajj in a state of preparation, mental preparation, spiritual preparation, etc. So the 5 miqat are, Dhul Hulayfa, Dhatul Irq, Qarnul Manazil, Ya Lamlam, and Juhfa. So a miqat refers to the designated locations where pilgrims must enter the state of ihram before proceeding to Makkah for Hajj or Umrah. So there are 5 main miqat points. 4 of these points were established by the Prophet ﷺ, and 1 was established by the Khalifa, Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anhu. And the reason Sayyidina Umar made this 5th miqat was because initially when the miqat were made, the Muslims were all residing within the Arabian Peninsula. That was the majority of Muslims. And they were established travel routes. So all of these miqat are alongside certain established not only travel routes, but routes that people used to use for coming for Hajj. So to facilitate ease in this was the general routes that people would travel when coming for Hajj. So it was easy for them to put on the ihram and go into the state of ihram at one of these points. Because how people traditionally used to come, and then they would meet at these places, they would congregate there, they would have certain markets, etc. All part of how they would come in for Hajj, because Hajj in those days was a very, very, very long journey. Not too long ago, even from our grandparents and parents perhaps, when they had to undertake, they would have to go by boat, and it would be a 4 months journey or a 6 months journey. People would be away from home for Hajj, etc. So previously people used to travel long distances, and people used to travel into Makkah by road, and because of this, they would have to take certain paths, and on these paths, there were certain designated areas from where they would have to don the ihram. These miqat are still applicable today. In the time of Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anhu, because of the expansion of the Muslim territory into Persia, into Sham, etc., so different routes were also established. So Sayyidina Umar appointed a 5th miqat, and this would then be the place from where people that would be traveling along that particular route would be from where they would put on their ihram. Otherwise, the problem was there was no established place for them on that particular route to put on the ihram, so they wouldn't know exactly where to put on the ihram. Or alternatively, they would have to divert their journey to somewhere else in order to find a place, you understand, to know and to find a place from where they could don the ihram. So Sayyidina Umar appointed another miqat so as to facilitate ease for the people. So then you find that people like us who come from afaq means horizon. Afaq means the horizons. So depending on which direction the person is looking, that to where his gaze can go, that is referred to as the ufuq. You know, the perimeter of your gaze. So afaqis means people that come from beyond there where our gaze can see. Here by us it is very difficult because you've got high-lying areas and low-lying areas, whereas out in the desert a person can actually see for quite a far distance. You understand? And that is why the people that would come from beyond those areas, they are referred to as afaqis. Somebody from the afaq, which means somebody that comes from beyond the horizon that we can see. So those are people, when they come into Makkah for Umrah, then these are the people who needs to utilize one of the miqat in order for them to go into ihram. And then we find that a very unique place also is Jeddah. So Jeddah is a coastal city from where now we find there's an airport in Jeddah. Previously people like many people that come from certain areas in Yemen, if they come via boat, or people from Egypt that come via boat, and North Africa if they come via boat, then they generally come in via Jeddah, which is a coastal city. But for them, they would have to don the ihram before they come to Jeddah. However, the people that reside within Jeddah, the people who stay in Jeddah, so they will don the ihram from Jeddah. The rest of us, if we come in by aeroplane, if we come in by boat, then you will find that generally in terms of the location of the miqat, once we land in Jeddah, we are already beyond one of the miqat. We've already crossed one of the miqat. So therefore it is required from us that we should actually, if we are going into Jeddah, now it depends. Are you landing in Jeddah and going to Medina, or are you landing in Jeddah and coming for Umrah? If you are landing in Jeddah and going to Medina, you don't need to don the ihram, because you don't require ihram to go to Medina. If you are landing in Jeddah and coming to Makkah, then you are required to don the ihram before you land in Jeddah. So those who come to Jeddah by airways must make intention and enter the state of ihram when they are in the air before passing over the miqat line. So therefore, one of the important things in this is to know your itinerary, your travel arrangement, the airlines you are flying with, what time you are, because in most instances, Saudi Airlines used to fly at some time here directly from Johannesburg. Then I think it was just over a 6-hour flight, which would then mean they would fly directly into Jeddah. It would be about a 6-hour flight. So in most instances, you would have to then don your ihram. Essentially, it was for the men more so, because for the ladies it was easier. They didn't have to put on any special clothing. But for the men, they wouldn't have to go on the airlines, go into the toilet, put on the ihram, and then come out. You understand? Because there was a direct flight. Now, if you are flying one of the other airlines, which have got, the hubs, so then you will first fly to the main hub, and then from there you will again fly to Makkah, or to Jeddah rather. So you need to see whether or not you will have sufficient time allowance, and you must be aware of that. How long will your stay over be on that airport? Because if you land on one place, you need to get to another place in order to find your connecting flight from there to Jeddah. So you need to be aware of the time allocation so that you can know whether there's enough time for you to put on your ihram. And if you've got only very little time, remember that there are certain things which we're going to come to that are sunnah to do for you in going into the state of ihram. Like taking a ghusl, etc., doing certain things before the time. So you have to ask yourself whether you will have time to do that on the airport, or whether those are things which you must do beforehand, and when you're on the airport, actually just, put on the clothing of ihram along with the intention, so that those sunnah actions which are connected to the ihram, you will have to do even before you get onto the plane. So it's important for us to be aware of our time constraints. And very often in traveling, that is one of the important things that one needs to look at. Because if you're not going to be aware of your time management, then you're going to find yourself you're going into this coffee shop and you're going to go do some window shopping here and there, and then you hear final announcement for boarding. You understand? And then you still haven't put on your ihram, so it becomes a problem. So the 5 miqat locations are Dhul Hulayfa, for the pilgrims who come from Medina, all right? And even if you fly into Medina and you're going for immediately first for Umrah, then Bir Ali. Dhul Hulayfa, also known as Bir Ali. Then Datu Irq. This is for pilgrims coming from Iraq, Iran, China, and Russia. And this is the one that was established by Hazrat Umar radiallahu anhu. Why? Because this was when Islam spread into Persia. So this Iran, Iraq, Russia, China, this used to be all part of the area that was previously known as the Persian Empire. And then you have Al-Juhfa. So this is for pilgrims coming from Syria, Egypt, Europe, and North America. And then Qarnul Manazil, for pilgrims who come from Najd, Taif, and Riyadh, and Yalamlam, for pilgrims come from Yemen, and those who pass by the Red Sea, which is ourselves. So the significance of the miqat marks the boundary where pilgrims must enter into ihram, which is a state of consecration. In other words, a state of consecration meaning that you as a person become holy. You make yourself holy. And therefore certain prohibitions applies now to your body. Your body, the Christian people have this saying that your body is like a temple. You understand? Especially when they want to speak about bad food habits and drinking and smoking. So they say, no, because your body is a temple. Now this is basically, by way of, an example, what happens to us when we go into a state of ihram. Our body itself is considered to have now come into a holy state. And therefore it involves for the men particularly specific clothing, and there are also certain prohibitions that goes along with a person being in a state of ihram. So it is obligatory to wear ihram before crossing the miqat boundary. So for the men, now if this line here is the boundary of the miqat, then if I'm in front of the line or if I'm on the line, I've still not crossed the line. So I can put on my ihram before I come to the line, and I can also put on my ihram on the line. Then I'm safe. And this is generally what we do. We go to Bir Ali, we go to certain masajid in all of these different, there are a number of other places from where a person, can don the ihram. So for example, if you come from Taif, if you come from, different other places, but these are the primary ones. These are the primary ones. Because they fall within the limits of those boundaries set by these 5 miqat. So as long as you have not yet gone over the line, whilst not yet being in a state of ihram, you are fine. Because we generally come to that place, but that place is the border. And so we must understand what is meant that, you can't cross the border. You can't cross the miqat. It means that line, that border, if you can put it on before, better. You put it on the border, fine, but you're not allowed to come over the border without being in the state of ihram. And for the ladies, it is obviously much easier because they basically just need to make the intention, Allahumma inni uhrimtu umratan fataqabbalaha minni wa yassirha li. If it's for Umrah, Allahumma inni uhrimtu lil Hajj, uhrimtu hajjan fataqabbal minni wa yassirhu li. In a sense, a very, very, very simple intention. Just, oh Allah, I put myself into the state of ihram for the purpose of Umrah. Accept it from me and make it easy for me. Oh Allah, I put myself into the state of ihram for the purpose of Hajj. Accept it from me and make it easy for me. Now you will find that there are other longer, slightly more complicated intentions that are made at the time of the ihram. And sometimes, depending who you travel with, what normally will happen, they will gather all the people together, and then somebody will read the intention up front, and then the rest of the people will simply read it behind that person at the time of going into the state of ihram. However, I'm just mentioning this is a very simple intention, and that is sufficient because that is essentially all that you need to do, to make intention to go into the state of Ihram for the purpose of Umrah, to make intention to go into the state of Ihram for Hajj, and then you make dua, oh Allah, accept it from me and make it easy for me, inshallah. So it is obligatory to wear the Ihram before crossing the Miqat boundary. If a pilgrim crosses the Miqat without the Ihram, they must return to the Miqat to wear it, or they must offer a kafara. So depending on how far you are from the Miqat, if you now realize, hey, I've already crossed the Miqat and I've not made gone into Ihram. Now remember, when we speak about going into Ihram here, we're not just simply speaking about putting on the clothing. We are speaking about the clothing along with the intention and the state of Ihram. So that the main part is that the person goes into the state of Ihram. So if the person has crossed the border without making the intention and without donning the clothing, then it means that the person has crossed the Ihram, the Miqat, so he's not yet in Ihram. So the person has got one of two choices. The person comes back to the boundary, makes the intention, goes into the state of Ihram, puts on the clothing of Ihram, and then continue. Or alternatively, if the person is too far past and he's not able to come back, then the person carries on, and the person then puts on the clothing of Ihram and makes the intention and goes into the state of Ihram from there where he is. From there where he is, however, for not doing so before crossing the boundary, the person then needs to pay a kafara, what they call the dam. No? You need to slaughter a sheep, inshallah. So if you do cross without, you've got one of two choices. Come back and start over, or alternatively, you carry on from where you are, but then you must remember you have to pay the dam. So for the residents of Makkah, they can enter into Ihram from their homes. They don't need to go anywhere. You understand? For us, when we are there and we want to do another Umrah, then we go to the Miqat. One of the places also encouraged for people to go. It is at the Masjied Aisha, at Tan'im, Masjied Aisha. Then we go there, we put on the Ihram for there, and then we come back, inshallah. So for the reason of Jeddah, they can also enter into Ihram from their place of residence, as it is close to Makkah. Between Jeddah and Makkah, if you travel by car, average speed of about 100 to 120, it's about an hour. I think same as Worcester is about an hour's drive from here. No? Same distance between Makkah and Jeddah as you find from Cape Town to Worcester. Okay, so the residents of Makkah enter the state of Ihram for Hajj within the borders of the Haram, and for Umrah in places like Tan'im or Arafah, which are outside the border of the Haram. So Tan'im, like Arafah, it's just outside the border. That's why you will find that if you do go to Tan'im, those who've been there perhaps already, you'll find that on your way back from Tan'im to the Haram, you hardly leave it, just probably a kilometer, then you'll find a notice board that says, that the Haram starts here. Which means when you were at Tan'im, you were technically outside of the Haram area. And that is why even you can go to Arafah and put on Ihram from there. That is if you are in Makkah. You came in from outside, you came in with Ihram from one of those other miqat. Now you've been in Makkah, you've performed Umrah. Now you want to perform a second Umrah. What is required is that you go to a place outside of the Haram. So you have to go outside of the Haram and then come back into the Haram. So Tan'im, that's when Nabi Sallam indicated to Hazrat Aisha anha, and that is why this is called Masjied Aisha, because she was not able to perform her obligations because she was in a state of Hajj. So when she became clean, Nabi Sallam told the brother, take her to that place and then come with her from there. They have her put on Ihram from there, go into the state of Ihram and come from there and then perform the rituals. So therefore, for those of us who have now come in Makkah, we are in Makkah, we don't need to go back to one of those other miqat because it's a distance actually from Makkah. You can go either just out of the hill, we can go to Tan'im, or alternatively you can go to Arafah and don Ihram from there, because you put on the clothing of Ihram. The only thing is that you go there, you make the intention, and then you come back and perform the Umrah, because those areas are outside the border of the Haram area. So when the Afaqi pilgrims, which is us people, in other words, people who come from outside Makkah, pardon, who are released from the state of Ihram when performing Hajj or Umrah, want to enter the state of Ihram again whilst they are still in Makkah, they act just like the people of Makkah, like the residents of Makkah. The people of Makkah, they put on the Ihram at home, then they go there and they perform the Umrah from there. In the same way, once we are now in Makkah, we put on the Ihram in the hotel, we put on the clothing. Or if you want to, you can go and put on another Ihram, you can go till there because they've got all the facilities there, they've got showers there. Only thing is at Arafah, you might find it a bit problematic because it's not normal for people to go there to put on Ihram to perform another Umrah. They've got toilet facilities also, but it's not as geared up as it is at Masjid al-Aisha, because most people actually go to Masjid al-Aisha. It's more accessible, it's much easier also. And then we do the same, inshallah. So then there are certain sunnah acts of Ihram. So it is sunnah to perform a ghusl beforehand when going out of the house or when entering Makkah. Even if the pilgrim is, even if the lady is in Hajj, then she still performs this ghusl. It is a sunnah ghusl that is related to the donning of the Ihram. So this is not a ghusl to indicate that the lady is clean, but she is doing this because even if the lady is in a Hajj, she can still go into the state of Ihram. So this ghusl is not a ghusl for the purpose of cleaning the lady of tahara so that she can perform the ibadah. Because for the tawaf, she will still have to be in a state of cleanliness, and she can't do so in the state of Hajj. So this ghusl in itself is like a ghusl of ibadah. You are doing so to put you in the state of ihram, not to put you in the state of tahara. So this ghusl is to put the lady in a state of ihram and not to put her in a state of tahara for the purpose of making salah or even tawaf. So then to perfume the body after performing the ghusl. For a woman to dye the palm of her hands up to the wrist with henna, but without inscription. In other words, you can't make patterns. You don't make, you can dye the inside, you understand, with henna, etc. But you can't make, it's because, why? It's not for adornment. This is not for the purpose of beautification. Understand? In fact, in the olden days, henna was actually used for the purpose of protecting the hands of the ladies. You understand? It was like a hand treatment, more than a beautification. The beautification aspect actually only came afterwards. So you can put on perfume as long as you've not gone into the state of ihram. Now there's a distinction here. You can put on attar before you go into the state of ihram. In other words, you take the ghusl, you can put attar on your body, you can put your lotion on, but once you have made the intention and gone into the state of ihram, now you can't do it anymore. So it's important to understand the distinction. It is actually sunnah to do so before you go into the state of ihram. But once you are in the state of ihram, you cannot put perfumes, etc. on your body. Then to remove, obviously, the hair, etc., trimming the mustache, the fingernails, the toenails, etc. You know, all of those things are sunnah to do before a person goes into the state of ihram. You cannot do these things once you're in the state of ihram. If you do any of these things once you're in the state of ihram, then it becomes sinful and you have to pay a penalty for it. Why? Because you've now, you've made your body was waqf to Allah. So you can't take that body now no longer belongs to you. You're just using it, but it no longer belongs to you. You understand? So Allah gives you an opportunity before you come in the state of, but once you go in the state of ihram, it is essentially that you've now given your body to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So in the case of a man, for him to put on sandals and an izar and a rida. So the izar is what we wear at the bottom. All right? The rida is what we wear at the top. So for men, they wear this, and it is unstitched. Doesn't mean that there's no stitching in the clothing. What is meant by unstitched means it is not made to body fit. Like you see my kurta or my jacket, it is stitched according to the shape of my body. Now this is what is meant by stitched clothing. In the case of the izar and the rida, it doesn't mean that there's no stitching on it. There can be a border stitched on it, no problem. That is not what is meant by stitch. What is meant by stitched clothing means it cannot be according to the shape of your body. But if the izar is just tied around you, no problem. You understand? That is even if the border of the izar is stitched or the rida is stitched, then it is no problem. And then also with regards to the sandals, the sandals must be open at the top of the foot. And the top of the foot and the heel must be exposed, must be open. Okay, which is new and white, or at least washed. Doesn't have to be new. Preferred white. And that's why you'll find generally our ladies can go into any color, but in most instances when the ladies out of the sanctity and the holiness of the state of ihram, and because white represents the color of purity, and because that is what we seek in doing Umrah and Hajj, we seek spiritual purification. So we purify the body, we purify the clothes, and all of that is to facilitate purification of the soul. Okay. So women wear their regular clothes covering all the required parts of their body except their face and hands, as was mentioned. Their face and hands should be uncovered, as is the case in Salah. Now what you must bear in mind, this is according to the madhab of Imam Shafi'i rahimahullah. In the madhab of the Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah, the feet is also allowed to be open for the ladies. That is why, so don't get the shock if you stand next to a lady and her feet is open, think, hey, die vrou se auras op, hoe maak sy Salah? No, that lady is probably practicing on the Hanafi madhab. And that again is where the challenge come in for the men on the mataf, when we do tawaf. You understand? Because generally a non-mahram lady touches us, then our wudu is considered to have broken. But now these ladies, our ladies are wearing socks. You touch her feet, no problem. And also when it speaks about the touching, it means skin on skin. If I've got my arms covered with my jacket and there's another lady and her arms are also covered and I knock against her, that by itself does not break the wudu. When we speak about the wudu breaking, it means the touching of skin on skin. So now if I'm bare feet and that lady is bare feet and she touches my feet, then by definition, she breaks my wudu. So now all of that complicates obviously the requirement of tahara. Which is why generally the ruling would be, first of all, any strange lady touches you, skin on skin, any part of your body, the wudu breaks. Then secondly, in the tawaf, the masala in the Shafi fiqh is that we have the distinction between what is referred to as a lamis and a malmus. Lamis means the one that touches, malmus is the one that is being touched. Now, in the tawaf, it is extremely difficult to know, and now you become also guilty paranoid. Did I touch this lady, or did she touch me? And the same way for the ladies. You know, you are walking, somebody's hand touches your hand. You don't now know, you were just walking. Did I touch this person? Did this person touch me? So now it becomes very confusing. That is why and you don't want to perform your ibadat in that state, in a state of confusion. And it is only in the tawaf that we are required to be in a state of tahara. For Umrah and for Hajj, the only occasion, besides Salah, you must also obviously be in a state of tahara for Salah. But because of the resemblance between the tawaf and Salah, that's why the only act for which we must have tahara is the salah, which is why the mataf is such a challenging area for us, challenging space. So therefore the ulama, they make taqleed and follow the ruling of the Hanafi madhab, which is that even if a strange man and a strange woman touch each other coincidentally, it does not break the wudu. The wudu is only considered to have broken if the person touched that person of the opposite gender with intent, and in addition to that with desires. You know, if there's a connection of desire there, and that obviously every person will know for himself, because I can touch my wife, but it doesn't necessarily mean that on every instance I touch my wife that it is coupled with desire. You understand? So whether or not I do touch somebody with desire, that is a matter of taqwa. That is a matter of taqwa. That is known between me and Allah. But I have to obviously know that I'm playing with my ibadah. So if I don't do it right, then I lose my ibadah. May Allah grant us tawfiq. But so therefore, on the mataf, because of the congestion, and I mean it's packed. Sometimes you don't even have space to move. So you've got really no control over. You can't avoid people touching you, and you don't know who's going to touch you. So therefore, to be, you know, sort of peace of mind, We follow the ruling of the Hanafi madhab, and we regard that unless anything else happens, you break wind or whatever, then your wudu obviously is broken. You need to go and take wudu, and then you just carry on with your tawaf from where you stopped. But for generally touching, we consider that the wudu has not broken. Right? So then what is also sunnah at the time of putting on the ihram is to make 2 rak'ats of sunnah salah before donning the clothing of the ihram. So you make 2 rak'at salah, you make ghusl, you put on the perfume, the oils, whatever, you put on the clothing, and then you make 2 rak'ats of salah. Alright? But obviously to make sure that the time when one does this salah is not the time when it is prohibited for us to be making voluntary, because the sunnah salah, it shouldn't be a time when it is prohibited upon us to make a salah. And then as for someone who is within the Makkah precincts, so as for someone who is in the Makkah precincts, he may perform these 2 rakat salah no matter what time it is, because if you are within the haram, then the principle of zawal does not apply, because zawal is there, or other prohibited times is there, because those were times when people used to worship other things besides Allah, like the rising of the sun, the setting of the sun at zawal. The fire worshippers used to worship, the people that worship the sun used to worship. So it's not to resemble them. We are not allowed to do acts of ibadah at that time. However, when you're in the haram and you're facing Kaaba, there can't be any doubt what the purpose of that salah is. If I'm making salah, you're on a field, people can ask, want to maak die buta salah? For what maak die buta salah? You understand? But if I'm in the haram, or I'm there in Makkah and the Baytullah Kaaba is there, Masjidul Haram is there, and I'm facing Masjidul Haram, there can be no doubt with regards to what my ibadat is for. Okay? And if a person makes the salah, then it is made silently. And generally we are encouraged to read Qul Ya Ayyuhal Kafirun and Qul Huwallahu Ahad in the sunnah salah. So and then after the person does this, the person makes the intention, Allahumma ihrimtu umratan or li umrah or hajjan fataqabbal minhu wa yassir li. Then now the person is in the state of ihram. Once the person goes into the state of ihram, then it is sunnah for the person to read the talbiyah, which is the labbaik. Right? And the person is required to do this. For the men, it is sunnah to do so loud, and for the ladies, it is sunnah to do so softly. And we are encouraged to do so continuously. But if you're obviously taking a long journey, it doesn't mean that from there, for the 6 hours you are driving on the bus, you need to ride. You just intermittently, you understand, but you constantly try to avoid yourself from not becoming distracted by other things too much. For the most part, you try to remain focused on your umrah, and in assisting you to do so, you read the labbaik. Alright, so labbaik Allahumma labbaik, and labbaik actually means I am here. Now a person must be careful also. Why we try to do things correctly? We say labbaik Allahumma labbaik. Now normally when we do this, then it is considered that Allah Ta'ala responds to us. Now there's one of 2 responses a person gets. If Allah Ta'ala accepts his labbaik, then Allah Ta'ala's response is labbaika ya abdi wa sa'adaik. Allah Ta'ala responds to that person and says, the slave says, I am here, O Allah. I am here, I am in your service. Then Allah Ta'ala's response is, labbaika ya abdi wa sa'adaik. O my slave, I am also here for you. You are here for me, and I am here for you, wa sa'adaik, and I will help you in what you are about to do. Subhanallah. The other one we don't want. When we say labbaika ya Rabbi, ya labbaik, Allahumma labbaik, and Allah Ta'ala says to us, la labbaika laka wa la sa'adaik. I am not here for you, and I will not help you. Now, how we do our preparation, etc., that is why the seriousness of the ibadah of Umrah and going into Ihram, it is important for us to be aware of that because of that response. If we get the right response there, then we can practically say our Umrah is accepted. Our Umrah is maqboola. Our Umrah, then it remains to us to make it mabrur. But if at that point the response is la labbaika laka wa la sa'adaik, and the thing is, we don't know that. But we must strive to get the right response and not get the undesirable response. May Allah Ta'ala grant us all tawfiq. Okay. La sharika lak, there is no partner to you. Labbaik, I am here for you. Innal hamda, indeed all praise. Wa ni'mata, and all bounty. Laka, are indeed for you. Walakal mulk, and to you belong all kingdom. La sharik, there is no partner to you. So now there are certain actions that become forbidden upon the person when he's in the state of ihram. So certain actions and behaviors are forbidden, which are referred to as the prohibitions of ihram. And so if a person is in the state of ihram and he violates any one of these prohibitions, then there is a penalty upon him due to this violation. Okay, so some of these violations, they fall into different categories. All right. So forbidden acts of ihram can be classified in terms of the related areas, and they fall into the following categories. Forbidden acts that are sins and haram and harm other people, because it harms other people. And then there are certain prohibitions related to the body, and then there are certain prohibitions related to the clothing that the person may wear, certain prohibitions relating to hunting regarding a person's food, and then there are certain prohibitions relating to the haram area. I see with the Shaheed just brought a set of ihram clothing here. I actually wanted to bring my set also this morning. So alhamdulillah. So generally for the men, it's a very simple process. Obviously, with the men, then you would ideally, very simple. Now there's different ways. This is just a very simple way, and that would be your ihram. So now, if this opens, then your legs will still be covered. Yeah? Oh, okay. So I'll just do it again. If you can either do it that way or this way even, with the left side to the side of the left, and then the right side across, and then you tie it, you just turn it. So this way the front part is covered, because I think for men that is our biggest worry. You understand? If it opens up in front, it can be very embarrassing. So now, if this happens to open, then the legs are still covered by the other side that went across. Then when it comes to the rida, essentially it is just required that it should be over the shoulders. But in most instances, we will cover, you'll have this here in front, and then you will cover. When it comes to the tawaf, we have what is referred to as the ittiba. I don't know if you can recall, I remember the ittiba, which is for the right arm actually to be open. So then the person would essentially do this with the ihram. And the right arm, the right shoulder and arm will be open, and he will do his tawaf like this, inshallah. So very simple. Sometimes you find people you get the tutorials on YouTube also, they've got to tie like this and like this and like this, and it won't go open. But then sometimes you might find yourself that you get so tied up that it becomes problematic even for you to do anything else. Okay, so prohibitions that are sins and harm other people. Right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us regarding certain things that we are prohibited to do. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Holy Quran that whoever undertakes the pilgrimage from Hajj al-Bayta, فَلَا رَفَثَ وَلَا فُسُوكَ وَلَا جِدَالَ fil Hajj. There are certain things we are prohibited. Rafath, which it is forbidden for the person who is in the state of ihram to have conjugal relations. In other words, between husband and wife, that becomes prohibited. Alright? Or any actions that might lead to it, such as kissing and direct physical contact, or saying things that might make one have sexual desires. If one concludes a marriage contract while being in the state of ihram, then the marriage will be null and void. Now again, if it is done in the state of ihram, because a while ago there was a video that circulated about a couple that got married in the haram while they were in ihram, and the person performing the nikah was also in ihram. Now, it was subsequently verified that that took place after they had performed the Umrah, so they were having on the clothing of ihram, but they were not in the state of ihram. So that video was very misleading. It was very misleading, you understand? But they were not actually in the state of ihram. So who knows, somebody gets married, he comes here into the masjid wearing an ihram for his wedding outfit. No problem. No problem, you want to wear this for your wedding day, Bismillah. You understand? That is not the state of ihram. You are wearing this clothing, but it is not the state of ihram. So the prohibition is once you are in the state of ihram. And fusuq, disobeying Allah Ta'ala by performing any forbidden act. Although certain actions are forbidden at all times, the prohibition against them is all the more emphatic. It is more serious during the times of Hajj and Umrah when you're in a state of ihram. And then jidal, which is arguments. It is forbidden to be argumentative and contentious, with your companions or with any other people whilst you are in a state of ihram. So the prohibitions that relates to the body, so to having the hair or the beard cut or trimming the mustache. So this you can do before you go into the state of ihram, but once in the state of ihram, you're not allowed to do it. To remove any bodily hair by shaving, cutting or plucking, it is also prohibited. As I said, your body no longer belongs to you. You could have done these things before you went in the state of ihram, at the time of doing the ghusl, etc. But once in the state of ihram, you can't do so. So clipping the fingernails and toenails, prohibited. Using perfume such as musk, for example, on one's clothing or body, or carrying perfumes or perfume-like fragrance with the aim of smelling it, it is all prohibited. You can do all of this stuff before making your intention, but once you've gone in the state of ihram, you can't do any of these things. These are all considered to be violations of the ihram. Applying kuhul with perfume, the things that you put in the eyes, atanami, that is also prohibited. A few other things that are also prohibited is dyeing the hair or the beard, you understand, for the purpose of adornment. Putting on hair gel, and for women to wear lipstick and nail polish, all prohibited. All prohibited. You understand? And more so with hair gels and lipsticks and nail polish, you have to be sure that those are not things that prevents the water from getting to your actual nails. Because if it is such that it prevents the water from getting to your hair or getting to your nails, then it can also be such that it invalidates your wudu as well. You understand? So that is why these kind of things, generally for us as Muslims, it is always best to avoid. If your husband comes home tonight and put on a bit of lipstick, no problem. Come stand out for Allah, laat maar af. So it is makruh, it is reprehensible for a woman to use henna while she is in a state of ihram. But remember we said she can put it on before. She can put it on before, but in the state, it is for this, it is not considered haram, but it is considered makruh for her to do so. And that is if she is in a waiting period following the death of her husband, she is forbidden entirely. So in other words, if the lady is in ihram, generally, she can put it on before she goes into the state of ihram. In the state of ihram itself, it is then makruh for her to put it on if she hadn't put it on before. However, if her husband had passed away during that period of time and she's now in the state of iddah, then it is haram for her wife, because then it will be considered an act of adornment. An act of adornment. So she will be prohibited from putting it on. Right. As for the man in the state of ihram, he may use henna anywhere on his body except his hands and feet. As for the use of henna on a man's hands and feet, it is forbidden unless there is a need to do so. So because henna is also used as a what they call that mercurochrome, to dry out wounds. So a man, it was used in those days. So if they would use it, for example, the man has got a wound on his body and he uses the henna on that part of his body, then no problem. You understand? It is allowed. Because men are not considered to wear henna for adornment. I think things have changed now. Because now you find that the men are even wearing the henna. Wallahu a'lam. Men are now more into the makeup than women. You understand? The ladies used to have a makeup case and the men a toolbox. Now if you open the toolbox of the men, is net beauty products daarin. Dus hy het, wallahu a'lam. Allah knows best. Die man het meer creams en salam. Anyway, but for a man generally, ladies put henna on their hands and their feet as a means of adornment also. Although primarily it wasn't for, that's why you can't over-embellish for the ladies when you're in a state of ihram by doing patterns. At home you want to do patterns, your husband, no problem. No problem. It's encouraged also. Beautify yourself for your husband, no problem. You understand? But for men, the men don't wear henna on the hands and feet. You understand? Because we as men, men are most rugged men. So the ladies, they would do this so that the hands don't become rough and get the calluses, because that is what part of what the henna was considered to have prevented for the ladies, so that the hands stay soft and nice and whatever. But for men, ruggedness is most a feature of men. You know, the hands are a bit hard. Voete moet nie die kanala boetas. Ja, kyk echt julle voete. Jou voete nie nou nie. So saggies en so toe soos 'n vrou se nie, but ek meen, kyk agter jou voete. Kanala boetas. But I mean, be decent, you must, be manicured, kyk agter jouself, but nie met henna nie. You understand? Bietjie Vaseline in die ane en so, die voete bietjie sag en so aan te. Doen dat ook is important, you understand? Just like how men expect their women to be, moetjies lyk en almal die for them, you must reciprocate. Kan jy wees dat die vrou moet nog haar mooi maak vir jou, because, maar dan lyk Jesus, wie kom maar aan? Nee man, kan hulle, keep the beard nice, en die vrouwelijke, sy vat in die vrou se hand, en voel het so sandpapier, you understand? No, keep your hands also nice, en die voete ook, hoor die nails mooi, getrim, en allemaal die crazy, die toenails, ja Allah. So, like this, but I'm just mentioning that now, but because in terms of adornment, man, you understand? Ladies, they do the adornment, but men must also be well kept. Ons moet presentable wees. You understand? Because baat is jy maak jou mooi presentable hier voor die ander mense, kos jy by die huis met jou vrou sien, jou vrou, ja salam, wat gaat hier aan? You understand? So prohibitions related to the clothing. Okay, so we are not allowed to wear dyed clothing, like colored clothing for the men. You understand? This is regarded to be a prohibition. And also perfumed clothing. So, like, alhamdulillah, I like wearing my attar. So, I can't do that in the state of ihram. I always generally try to carry attar with me, but I can't do that in the state of ihram. And for men, wearing something that is stitched, as I explained, something that is in accordance with the shape of the body. You understand? You will see, now, you might even find that with some of the ihrams, if you see in this ihram, doesn't have it, but some of the other ihrams, they will have a border that is stitched. That is not what is referred to. What is referred to is that this, if I take this now and I make a jacket out of it, then I can't wear it. It's not about having this material. I can use this material and I make me like a lungi out of it, or I can make me a pants out of it, then I can't wear it. Then I can't say, but it is the material of ihram. No, ihram is meant, it mustn't be cut according to the shape of the body. And then for men, covering any part or the entire head is prohibited. So you can't, I see it's become, I don't know how, but I found a number of people who are on the mataf, but then they will have their topi. Now, you can't have your head covered in ihram. Or sometimes people would wear the umbrella. If it's so extremely hot, then they've got like that cap thing with the umbrella on top. A man cannot wear that. You can't also use the ihram and then, I put on my ihram, and then I use it partly to cover my head. Not allowed. Not allowed at all. You understand? So the head must be uncovered. So therefore it is very important that a person chooses his time of the day when he goes for his Umrah, so that he does not expose himself to the heat too much. And then for men, wearing something which extends all the way around part or all of one's body, such as a shirt, a trousers, a turban, or a jubbah. This obviously, as I mentioned, that is what is meant by stitched clothing. For to do that is a violation of the ihram. And women, again, in turn, they should not cover their hands and faces. And it's permissible for them to cover their hands and their faces to cover themselves against strangers. So if you are generally, besides on the mataf, you need to have it open. But if you are traveling or sitting in the bus, and now somebody comes, you put your hands under, for example, the ladies who are generally in niqab, so they feel shy under those circumstances. So now these strange men coming, so if they've got a small little piece of cloth or something, and they put their hands under there temporarily until the men pass, and then no problem. But you're not wearing gloves, and you're not, with the niqab, what the ladies are doing nowadays, because they will have a pea cap, and then they will have a cloth in front of it, because the veil that they're wearing is not against the face. Some ulama say it is permissible, but again, when you are on the mataf, you will find, unfortunately, really unfortunate, but you do here and there get a bit of a perverted guy that now kyks nou die titties and so on. But hy is eintlik daar vir Umrah nie. He's there for something else. But generally, niemand bother hulle vir jou met jou nie. Nobody's really bothered with you. You understand? And it is only for that short period of time. And for you to not wear the niqab at that time is not a violation of the Sharia. It's not a violation. In fact, it is the same like how you would perform your salah without the niqab. You perform your tawaf and your sa'i also without the niqab. And wallahu a'lam. Alright? So, however, the face cover should be like a veil which hangs before her face but does not touch the face. As I say, with the ladies that wear the pea cap. So, it's a very big pea cap. Pea cap is that cap with the thing in the front. But they've got one that is fairly big, and then there's a veil that prevents the veil from touching the face if they do wear something like that. Okay, and then men are likewise it is likewise forbidden to wear regular shoes. So the men cannot wear regular shoes unless there is a medical reason. Like for example, a person who is diabetic. So they've got problems with their feet, and sometimes you find that the diabetic, he can't actually wear slippers because I loop onder die slippers uit. So if he generally in the state of ihram and he genuinely can't wear slippers, then he can wear ordinary shoes. And as I mentioned previously, even when you are doing tawaf, you are allowed to wear sandals. The same shoes that you can wear in the state of ihram, you can actually wear it on the mataf. And as we've had an experience with one of our brothers here from Bonteheuwel, he picked up a virus on the mataf, and they had to cut some of the flesh of his foot. Alhamdulillah, he's recovered nicely. But I'm just saying, so generally we are required to wear open top shoes or sandals, inshallah. So prohibition of hunting, we are not allowed to hunt any animals for food within the haram area. All right? So we are not allowed to kill any wild animals in that area. So according to Shafi school, neither hunting aquatic game nor slaughtering domestic animals like chicken and lamb are forbidden to the pilgrim in the state of ihram. Alright? So this year, according to Shafi madhab, hunting aquatic game means like whales and those fish that are, but now, I mean, we generally don't travel by sea anymore, so that isn't really an option for us. And then the same with chickens and lamb. We can kill for the purpose of food because this is what we will generally eat. Game here would refer to wild animals. Now, if you are there and you buy a chicken or you buy a sheep and you slaughter it for the purpose of food, then there's no problem in that. So prohibitions related to the haram area. So again, hunting game or cutting trees and grass, etc. within the precincts of Makkah, this is all prohibited. There's two plants that you are allowed. One is referred to as the izhir, and this is generally a plant that was used for firewood. So that you were allowed, and the senna plant, which people would use for medicinal purposes, that you were also allowed to use. But other than that, other plants would be prohibited. Right? So it is permissible to trim trees or to take other action for rehabilitative purposes. Right? So in other words, if, for example, there's a tree that's growing, nobody's tending to it because it's just growing, but it covers and causes inconvenience to people on the road. So you are not cutting it in order to uproot the tree, but you are cutting it now in order to facilitate ease for people, then you are allowed to cut it. Now remember, these rulings are there and we are mentioning it, but for the most part, we are not actually exposed to this because we are traveling by way of buses, etc. Right? So fruits and branches of the miswak tree can be plucked, and it is permissible to graze animals in the haram area, etc. But now, as far as fruits are concerned, you can take those fruits provided it doesn't belong to someone. So if somebody's got a date farm there, you can't just go there and take dates and, okay, it's permissible, it's not a violation of the ihram. It's not a violation of the ihram, but it is haram because it belongs to somebody else. So this is not to say that if there's fruits on the road that you can just simply go and take it. You have to establish whether it belongs to somebody. And if it does belong to somebody, then you need to take that person's permission. Okay, so things that are not prohibited for a person to do when he's in a state of ihram, you can take a shower, you can take a bath, etc. The only thing is, once you're in the state of ihram and you take a shower or whatever, you can't use perfumed soap. And you can't use perfumed shampoo. That is why you get to buy the non-scented. And then in addition to that, you can't then afterwards again put on lotions and attars and perfumes, etc. You can basically just come in a state of cleanliness where you wash yourself. And so on. So now you take a splash and you just put on your ihram again. Also, you don't need to continuously wear the same set of ihram clothing. If, for example, you come from Medina and now it was hot, you were sweating, and before you're going to perform the Umrah, but now the clothing is all sweaty or it became dirty somewhere, you can just put on another clothing, another set of ihram. The same for the ladies. You are allowed, you break 2-3 outfits sometimes. Sometimes for your ihram, you can have 2-3 sets also. La bas be that. No problem with that. Changing the ihram clothing and washing them, brushing the teeth with miswak, no problem. If a nail, for example, you knocked your foot somewhere or you knocked your hand somewhere, and now a nail is broken. In other words, you did not tear it off, but it is damaged, it is broken, and then to avoid any further injury, you are allowed then to take it off. This is before the putting on the ihram. But once you've put it on, you are not allowed. Depending on the state of ihram. Once you're in the state of ihram, you can't use it anymore. No, this is actually before the state of ihram. That's why I mentioned earlier that you can do that before, but not once you are in. So I was just reiterating that perhaps it wasn't clearly stated there, but to reiterate that you could use those things before you go into the state of ihram, but once in the state of ihram, you are not allowed to use it. Okay, so you're allowed to have your tooth pulled out because of a medical requirement. Venesection is where a person becomes sick due to very high iron levels. Then what they will do, they will make an incision on one of his prominent veins, and then they will draw from his blood. In other words, so venesection means to make a cut in a vein. That is what, net 'n mooi woord, 'n groot woord om te sê, to make a cut in the vein in order to draw blood, which is similar to the cupping or the bloodletting, ihtijam, without getting the head shaved. In other words, you can do it on the different parts of the body if it's required for medical purposes. It's permissible, provided if it is required on the head, then you are not allowed to have your hair shaved. You understand? So you'll have to find an alternative to that. Having an injection or getting a wound wrap, that does not violate the ihram. So wearing rings and watches and sunglasses and gas masks, you understand, these are you see, things that are not forbidden. So you can wear your ring. With regards to the sunglasses, when you're, for example, doing your tawaf, it must be such that the sunglasses doesn't cover the most of your face. You understand? Because if it covers the most of your face, for example, the ladies who normally wear the niqab. So now, part of wanting to conceal from the face, the entire face comes first, you put on sunglasses. Now, if the sunglasses is so big that it covers the greater part of the face, then that will be a violation. You can wear sunglasses provided it doesn't. As an eye protection, you can wear it, but provided it doesn't cover the greater part of the face. The same with, if it is a gas mask, like the people had at the time when they had to use what they call that, the face mask, you understand? These are your exceptions because it is done for medical reasons or for other allowable reasons, but generally this is not something that a person would wear. So wearing a money pouch, even if it has stitches, no problem, you can wear the money pouch. And the belt around the izar, you get that particular belt that you use to tighten, because everybody is always worried. I say, if that thing falls off, it's a problem, you understand? So they use this to provide additional security by tying a belt around it, and then covering the body with something like a blanket without covering the face and the head. If it's cold, because you've got the ihram on, and for the ladies to use a shawl. Ladies like wearing a small shawl. To cover yourself with that shawl, no problem. It's not a violation of the ihram. Or taking a jacket or a coat over the shoulders without wearing it. So, for example, my jacket, if it is not, I'm in the state of ihram, but it is cold, if I do this, then it's not a violation of the ihram. As soon as I do this, it becomes a violation of the ihram. If I do this, it's a violation of the ihram. But if I wear it such that it only covers my shoulders, and it's in other words, it doesn't conceal the limbs of my body, then it is not a violation of the ihram. Okay, and then using an umbrella, or taking shade from a tent. If I use an umbrella, no problem, provided it's not that umbrella that I fix to my head. Then it becomes that I'm covering my head, then I can't wear it. So hunting aquatic animals like fish and slaughtering domestic animals is not prohibited, as I mentioned before also. We can catch fish. And if you domestic animals, you buy a chicken, you buy a lamb, you slaughter it for food purposes, no problem. Killing animals which are not game, such as cows, hawks, or harmful animals, pests and insects such as snakes, poisonous, scorpions, mice, fly, lice, etc., and wild animals like wild dogs, lions, and tigers, etc., that does not constitute a violation. What is constitute violation of the ihram? You get, in those days, you won't probably get it now anymore. There would be camels or cows or so on that were free. They didn't belong to anyone. So for you to then hunt that animal would constitute a violation of the ihram. But if there's lions and now you have to protect yourself and you kill them, it doesn't constitute a violation. Mosquitoes you can kill, yeah. But now the issue is, one is the killing of the mosquito, the other is the scratching where he bites you. You understand? If the mosquito is there and you kill him, no problem. But if you scratch there where the mosquito bit you and you scratch it open, then that constitutes a violation. Understand? So must be careful with those things also. So religious places to visit in Makkah. Hopefully we have some time still to, I'd like to finish, just briefly go through this. So we did go through some of this. So there's the Masjied al-Haram, obviously, where we go for the tawaf. The Masjied al-Haram is often referred to as the Grand Mosque, and it is the most sacred and iconic masjid in Islam. It is located in the holy city of Makkah, Saudi Arabia. So there, basically, you see the Great Mosque. Now, you will find that, let me just see, it doesn't show there. But in any case, I'm going to show you in the next picture. Now, in this picture, you will find that there's a difference between this picture and the one I showed you before, because in this one you will see that on that side there at the top, there, shukran, There's an extension. The haram has been extended. So that has now become included in the Masjidul Haram. That has now become included in the Masjidul Haram. Okay, that's fine. All right. So this is the main area, and these also indicate the different gates. Remember, I mentioned to you that when Nabi Sallam came in through Bab Salam. Now, as you can see here, on this side, here's gate, the Bab Salam, which is directly, in the center of the Masa, this area where you go for Sa'i. So that's why this door is generally not used anymore. So the other gates from where people now enter is the Babul Fath, the Babul Umrah, the King Fahad gate, and the King Abdul Aziz gate. Right? And then all of that together is the Masjidul Haram. Then in the Masjidul Haram, we have here in the center the Holy Kaaba. And then like how you have got 1, 2, and 3 there, it is the Hajar al-Aswad. Is at number 1 on the corner there. All right. And then you have the Maqami Ibrahim, which is there by number 2, and number 3 is the Hijr Ismail. I mentioned to you, if you are at the Hajar al-Aswad and you turn to your right and you walk across to there, then you come to where the Zamzam well used to be. All right. So the masjid is an architectural masterpiece, and it is characterized by its vast size and awe-inspiring design. It's a masjid like no other in the world. All right. Its most prominent feature is the Kaaba. As I mentioned in the picture here, you see that the Kaaba is right in the center. All right. So the masjid is actually around the Kaaba. The Kaaba is in the middle. If we were to put something in the middle of this masjid, people will say, "Wat gaat nou weer hier aan? Wat the bidah is die nou weer?" But there, the Kaaba is in the middle of the masjid. Right. It's the Kaaba. It's a cube-shaped structure at the center of the masjid. Now remember, we do not worship the Kaaba. And this is a very big misconception among the non-Muslims. They think that we're not worshipping the black stone of the Kaaba. It is only used for the purpose of unification, of direction of prayer. Right? And so if you see this, then you see here by number 1, on this corner, it is the Hajar al-Aswad. So that is generally where your tawaf will start. So then you'll go around with your left shoulder towards the Kaaba. The Kaaba is on your inside left shoulder, and then you walk around anti-clockwise, inshallah. So that is the Kaaba. All right. So there's the Hajar al-Aswad. Then there's the Multazam. What I mentioned last week also, that the Multazam is the area between the Hajar al-Aswad and the door of the Kaaba. It's a small space, but you'll find that is why this area between the Hajar al-Aswad and the Maqami Ibrahim and the door and the Hijr, this is the most congested area. This is normally where the pile-ups happen. All right? So you've got the Hajar al-Aswad, you have the Multazam. More or less here we start of Tawaf. This is more or less then where you will find the Zamzam well. The Zamzam well is more or less in this area. Then there's the Maqami Ibrahim, the door of the Kaaba, the Hijr Ismail, and that corner on that side is referred to as the Iraqi corner. And then you get the Mi'zab. Al-Mi'zab, what I mentioned, the gutter, the golden gutter. Now, you will see that on this diagram, this side of the Hijr Ismail is open. However, nowadays you'll find that this side is actually also closed off. They close it off so that people can't cut through there anymore. So people have to go around, and then there's an entrance on the other side where they allow people, but they also control how people come in and out in order to make 2 rakats of salah there. But that you will do after you've completed your tawaf, if you want to do any of those things. And then you get the Shami corner, all right, which is the corner where from this side where the Hijr Masail starts, that is the Iraqi corner, and the Shami corner is on the other side. Now, once you are, for example, on the Shami corner and your shoulder is towards the Shami corner, and you look up, diagonally across, I don't know if you'll be able to have your gaze there, then there's a number of pillars. Then you will find one pillar there that is so slightly purplish in color, and it's got a golden band around it. Now that pillar signifies the place from where Nabi Sallam got onto the Buraq when he went for Mi'raj. So if you have the opportunity, You can go and find that pillar. It's the only pillar of its kind. There's a few others that's also got sort of like a purplish color, but what makes this one unique, it's got the golden band around it, because that is the pillar from where Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam went for Mi'raj. And then you get the Yamani corner, which is where we also required to make istilam, and then between the Yamani corner and the Hajar al-Aswad is where we read the dua, Rabbana atina fid dunya hasana wa fil akhirati hasana wa qina adhaban nar. Right, so the Kaaba is seen as the most sacred space in the Muslim world, the site to which hundreds of millions of Muslims throughout the world turn each day when they pray. That's why we have a mihrab, and the purpose of this mihrab is to connect us to the Kaaba. So Muslims face the Kaaba when they pray, but they do not pray to the Kaaba. We pray in the direction of the Kaaba, but towards the Kaaba, but not to the Kaaba. So the Kaaba serves as the Qibla, the direction for prayers, so that there is unity and uniformity in prayer. And then that is what the Hajar al-Aswad basically looks like. It's got the silver casing around it, and then I don't know if you can see certain white flashes in there. Now that certain white flashes that you see in there, that is actually the parts of the original stone. The parts of the original stone. The whole black space is not the stone, because there's this part of the stone, the original stone was damaged, and then part of it was stolen, it was damaged, and then what was found, what was remaining of it, was put into that casing, and then people obviously they put attar in there and so on, and some also believe that this blackness there is as a result of the sins of the Muslims, that it turned black. So for the Muslims, the black stone is a tangible connection to the Kaaba, and its profound significance. So pilgrims from around the world make their way to Makkah to engage in tawaf, where they aim to touch or kiss the stone with deep devotion. So Nabi Sallam kissed the stone, you understand? And Nabi Sallam cried after that. So to kiss it is sunnah, it is not wajib. It doesn't mean that if you don't touch the Hajar al-Aswad or you don't kiss the Hajar al-Aswad that your tawaf is not correct or your Umrah is not correct. And that is why it is the point from where we start our tawaf. If we are able to, we kiss it like our Nabi Sallam did. He kissed it and then he started with his tawaf. And after every tawaf, Nabi Sallam touched it. But in those days, there weren't so many people. And now it is very challenging to get there. Right? That is why the alternative is that we make istilam. Now actually you can't see it, but this person's left hand is actually covering the Hajar al-Aswad. So you see there where his hand is on that corner, at the bottom there is the Hajar al-Aswad. It is in the Kaaba. Then that place between that corner and that embroidery, at the bottom there, that section is called the Multazam, and then that embroidery basically covers the door of the Kaaba. So either you go to the Hajar al-Aswad, kiss it and start your tawaf, or alternatively what is referred to as istilam. Istilam means you direct your hands, Bismillah, Allahu Akbar, and then instead of touching the Hajar al-Aswad or kissing it, you direct your hands and then you kiss your hands. You kiss your hands and then you continue with your tawaf. And how do you know if you're on the outskirts? Remember I mentioned there's a green light like that. Now you will find this light on the outside wall. So if you want to know where to start, you just look for that light, and that light will then indicate to you where your tawaf starts. And then once you're in line with that light, you turn towards the Kaaba, Bismillah, Allahu Akbar, you kiss your hands, and you continue. That is in the case where there's such a lot of people where you are on the outskirts, and you're not able to see the Hajar al-Aswad. And then next we have the Maqam Ibrahim, that is the casing for the Maqam. Can you see where the door for the Kaaba is? That's the one corner where the Hajar al-Aswad is. This is the Iraqi corner on here, and where the people stay, you can't see it now, there's a half wall barrier around there for the Hijr Ismail. So the Maqam Ibrahim is a few meters away from the Kaaba in the direction of the door. So when Nabi Sallam made his salah, that is the imprint of the feet of Nabi Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam on the rock, because he stood on that rock scaffolding, you understand? So this is one of the sha'air of Allah. It is a proof and the sign of the greatness of Allah Ta'ala. So Nabi Sallam stood with the Kaaba in front of Nabi Sallam and the Maqam Ibrahim behind him. That is when Nabi Sallam made that salah. We, however, because of the congestion, we are not required to, we can't do that. So we go behind to an area designated, and then we will have the Maqam Ibrahim between us and the Kaaba. And I can tell you, when you make your salah there, you've got this beautiful picture of the Kaaba in front of you, the door in front of you, subhanallah. And it is when you make your dua there, normally we do this after the tawaf. When you finish your tawaf, you go there, you make 2 rakats of salah, and then you make dua, and there you cry, and you ask, and you break down, and whatever you want from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you ask there. So the Maqam Ibrahim is a small square stone associated with the Prophet Ibrahim and the Prophet Ismail, and the building of the Kaaba, and what is now the Great Mosque of Makkah. According to Islamic tradition, the imprint on the stone came from the Prophet Ibrahim ﷺ's feet. And then you'll find there's a ramp that goes up. Now, after you normally do your tawaf and your salah there, then you drink as much zamzam as possible, and then you go up, and then you will come to a place called Bidayatus Safa. The Safa starts here, right? Which is now you start from Safa, going to Marwa, from Marwa back to Safa, until you complete your 7 times. So this act of running between Safa and Marwa is commemorated by Muslim pilgrims during the Sa'i rituals as an essential part of the Hajj and Umrah. Your Hajj and Umrah is not accepted unless you also do this. So it is the Ihram, the Tawaf, and the Sa'i. And then thereafter the coming out of the Ihram, which is either the Khalq or the Taqsir. Right, so the pilgrims reenact Hajar's actions by walking 7 times back and forth between these 2 hills, and it symbolizes the devotion, the trust and patience exemplified by Hajar and Ismail alayhi salatu wasalam, and serves as the reminder of Allah Ta'ala's mercy and provision. So here you are going to find an area where the actual sa'i, the running, which Hazrat Hajara did, was when she could not see Ismail alayhi salam. When she was at the top of the hill, she could see him. Then she went down, she couldn't see him. So from the one hill to the next hill, she would run. So that was the bottom part, which is a very small area. So in that area, nowadays, because it's been built up, we've got these green lights. Just like how for the tawaf to indicate where we need to start with our tawaf, we've got these green lights that indicates where we do the sa'i. So when we come to this area, then the men, not the ladies, that time it was done by a lady, now it is done by the men. The ladies, they do a brisk walk, but the men are encouraged to do a bit of a double up. You understand? Do a bit of a double up. So Safa and Marwa are now enclosed and covered. It is air-conditioned space. Now also again with the air conditioning, especially on the bottom one, you know, it can become very cold at the bottom, and you can actually feel that coldness on the floor and in your feet. You understand? So therefore you must be prepared for all of this. And pilgrims can perform the sa'i ritual in a comfortable and well-maintained environment. So it is a deeply spiritual experience, allowing pilgrims to connect with the historical roots of their faith and the profound acts of devotion that have shaped the practice of Islam for centuries. So alhamdulillah, this is now basically where my presentation for today concludes. Alhamdulillah, I know we did a lot of things for today, or the ihram, and then also some of these, because the reason I try to cover this, because there's some people that will be leaving now in this coming week for Umrah. May Allah Ta'ala grant them a safe journey. Allah Ta'ala grant them Umrah Maqboola. Allah Ta'ala grant them Umrah Mabrur. And may Allah Ta'ala keep their families also safe. But I did also mention, if there's anybody who's got any questions with regards to the Umrah, we've got about 5 more minutes, inshallah. Please, any questions with regards to whether it relates to what we discussed now, or anything with regards to your Umrah. Hajj, inshallah, we'll do later. But for now, just with regards to Umrah, because I know a lot of people are preparing with intentions for Umrah, inshallah. Yes, Titi? Look, what I can tell you with regards to du'as, there are no du'as that are fard to make any particular place. There are certain du'as that are sunnah, and you will generally find that when you travel with a group and there's a spiritual leader, that he will read certain du'as for you. When you are in tawaf, only between the Hajar, the Ruknul Yamani and the Hajar al-Aswad, the only sunnah dua to make there is Rabbana atina fid dunya hasana wa fil akhirati hasana wa qina adhaban nar. Wa adkhilna al-jannah ma'al abrari. That is the only recommended dua. Other than that, you can make your duas in any language, whatever dua you want. The only thing is, obviously, when you make your intention for the ihram, It is preferable in Arabic, but if you don't know in Arabic, you just make intention, because the place of intention is the heart, that, oh Allah, I'm putting on my ihram for the purpose of Umrah, accept it from me and make it easy for me. You understand? So you can, it is not required to be in Arabic. If you know it in Arabic, alhamdulillah. But as for du'as, that is why I generally encourage people you can buy a small booklet, Hajj and Umrah. There's some recommended du'as in there. You don't need to do it in Arabic. The only Arabic dua that we are encouraged to do whilst in Hajj and Umrah, or rather in Umrah, is رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيَا حَسْنَةً وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ حَسْنَةً وَقِنَا عَذَابَ النَّارِ. If you know that much, it's sufficient. Other than that, for the remainder of your walking, you speak to Allah. You can make a list. My first tawaf, I'm making dua for myself. My second tawaf, I'm making dua for my parents. My third, for my children. My fourth, for my, you understand? So like this, as you keep track, you make those specific du'as. And very, very easy. If you don't know what to say, I'll give you a very easy guide. Subhanallah, Alhamdulillah, La ilaha illallah, Allahu Akbar, La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad, Astaghfirullah. 7 very easy adhkar. If you don't know what to say in your first tawaf, you just say Subhanallah. You don't know what to say in your second tawaf, you say Alhamdulillah. You don't know what to say in your third tawaf, you say Allahu Akbar. You say La ilaha illallah in the fourth one. You know, in the fifth one, you say La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. Because each one of these words is also a dua by itself. Nabi Sallam has mentioned that the best dua is to say Alhamdulillah. You understand? So all of these are all forms of dua. In your sixth one, you say Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. And then in your last tawaf, you say Astaghfirullah. You understand? And with the intention that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgives you for whatever you or whatever else you make dua, I want to do. Other than that, you make it in your own language and you make dua for whatever you want. And that is one of the beauty, because in salah, we cannot make any of our adhkar in any other language besides Arabic. In the salah, it's only Arabic, but not in tawaf. Although the two resemble, but in tawaf, you have no restriction for Arabic du'as. And there's no prescribed du'as. There are certain du'as that Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is said to have made, and there are certain du'as which certain ulama encourage us to do, but those are not wajib du'as. You are there to connect to your Allah and speak to your Allah from your heart. It is better, Titi. Sometimes, I find people, then they make tawaf with the group, and the person in front, Allahumma, everybody, Allahumma, inni. But the people are not paying attention to the dua. They're just saying along. It is better for you to get connected to your dua and speak to Allah from the bottom of your heart, rather than to repeat the dua and not paying attention to it. Because Nabi Sallam tells us that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not accept dua min qalbin lahin, from a heart that is inattentive. So the main thing of the dua is that the heart must be attentive. May Allah grant us tawfiq. Any other question? Okay, there's what I generally recommend for people is to carry as little cash with you as possible. Because now in Makkah, there's 2 options. One is, if you've got like your normal debit card, like your normal banking card, you can use that there, provided it is a Visa card. Not all of the banks are Visa, but most of the banks, especially the tellers around the Haram and in Medina, etc. So you can actually go there and draw money. And if you are there, your family can deposit money for you in your own banking account. If you do carry money, you actually lose more money. Because if you use your card, then you're actually only paying for your normal banking fee. Whereas if you are going to change money, if you go here with rands, and I can tell you this much, we are in a very big disadvantage, because our currency carries very little value, it's very weak. So for us to go there, now what people do is that they change their rands here into dollars, and then they change the dollars there into reals. Or alternatively, they change the rands there into reals. But then because of the service fees attached, there's a lot of places there where you can go. But it is more difficult. Whereas if you've got your card, some places you can even just pay with the card, or alternatively you can go to an ATM and you can draw money from there. The only thing is, if you're going to do that, Marv, you must just go to your bank and inform them that you're going to travel and that you want to use your card for payments on that side. Just go to your bank before the time and inform them. Because it happened with me, I didn't inform my bank, they blocked my card, and I was stranded. Fortunately, I had other money with me, but it became a problem. But because they're very strict now with, I understand with Capitec, etc., it's fairly easy, but like some other banks, it becomes problematic. Any other questions? Any other questions from the men's side? No questions? Jazakumullah. So next week, inshallah, will be our last class. So for those who are going on Umrah, may Allah Ta'ala grant you a blessed journey. Keep us also in your du'as whilst you are there. Inshallah, I will also be traveling on the 29th. So next week, for the meantime, will be our last class. So next week, I would like to deal with some ziyaras, in Makkah and in Medina, inshallah. And if there's any other questions again that comes up regarding the Umrah, then you're welcome to ask, inshallah. Jazakumullah. جزاكم الله سبحان الله وبحمده سبحانك وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت